Greetings everyone and welcome to another episode of Fanfic Read-Through. I am Subaki94 and I'm reading to you my own fanfic. Here's the thing, I always say something in the beginning of an episode, like I'm doing now, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm trying to keep it under a minute sometimes. Sometimes it tends to go a bit shorter or way longer, and when it's longer, that's when I cut it short. So, with that said, as always, enjoy. Hell's Trip, Chapter 15 to 16. Ja's car was an old combi that had weathered at least 10 years before she had bought it. The inside was clean, and unlike the RV, she didn't leave empty burger wrappers or soda bottles all over the back seat. Sam was quick to take the front passenger seat, leaving Danny to sit in the back, which he was alright with. He could put his leg up and use his backpack as a pillow. He was asleep before Jazz had even started the car. Looking through the rear window, Jazz backed out of the hospital parking space and turned back to look ahead. She started the GPS on her phone. "Is it just me, or is my brother sleeping more than usual?" she asked, glancing over her shoulder to look at her brother. Sam sighed and glanced over her shoulder at Danny. "Depends on how you look at it. He was up all night and almost dying must be tiring," she yawned. "And it might be the fever." "What?" exclaimed Jazz, taking her eyes off the road to look at Sam. Sam told her everything Dan had said, and added the fact that he was warm. "I'm glad I decided to come home this weekend. Think about the trouble you'd be in if I hadn't." Shrugging, Sam sank down in her seat. "Yeah, I'm so glad you did. It's great having an adult save us." Jazz raised an eyebrow and looked at Sam. "You seem more gloomy than normal. Has something happened at home? Did your parents paint your room pink again?" "No, they haven't tried that after I threatened to report them to social services for abuse." Sam fiddled with a loose string on her shirt. "And I didn't want to be psychoanalyzed by you either," she added, but there wasn't much weight behind her words. "I wasn't psychoanalyzing you," said Jazz, giving Sam one of her reassuring smiles. "I was just concerned that something had happened to make you feel gloomy." "I'm a goth, we're always dark and gloomy," answered Sam, and then turned looking over at Danny. His fringe had fallen down, covering his eyes. "Can I talk to you?" she asked, looking up at Jazz as they got out on the highway. "You can always talk to me," answered Jazz, driving a bit slower than the speed limit. Sam looked over at Danny, and Jazz smiled. "And I won't tell anyone," she added. "Give me a nickel and our conversation gets Dr. Pension's confidentiality as well." Sam dug in her pockets and brought out $1. "I don't have anything smaller," she said, handing the money to Jazz. "You can get the change back when we stop for food," she said, assuming the expression of a tentative listener. "What did you want to talk to me about?" she asked. After they stopped for lunch at a nasty burger and walked Danny up, they spent the next hour and a half talking, in which Jazz was the one who did most of the talking. Sam had been worried when they stopped for lunch. Danny had looked like he'd been fighting ghosts non-stop, but after they'd eaten, his quick-wittedness was what made the conversations enjoyable. "Okay, I got one. Say that Skulker and Johnny 13 are having a fair fight. Who would win and who would lose?" asked Jazz, as she turned down the main road in Amity Park. "None of them," said Danny, with a sharp smile, leaning back in his seat. Grinning, Sam looked over at Jazz. However much Jazz had tried, she had never been able to understand how ghosts thought or fought. And that was mostly why she was more suited to help with other people or research. She seemed to think over Dan's answer and sighed as she turned down the road towards the Manson house. "I give up. Why wouldn't any of them win?" Danny rolled his shoulders. "'Cause none of them fight fair," he said, laughing lightly, joined by Sam. Jazz sighed and pulled up to the curb in front of Sam's home. "Okay, I walked into that one. Well, Sam, have a nice day, and I'll see you around." "You'll see me tonight. We still on for the movie marathon?" She turned questioning to Danny as she opened the door. Smiling, Danny leaned forward. "I wouldn't miss it. You get the pizzas as usual?" "Bet on it," said Sam, getting out of the car. "You make sure that the audio system is working this time. I don't want any more ghostly wails coming through the speakers in the middle of a song montage." Don't worry, Mom and Dad don't know this, but I used the speakers for an experiment of my own. He smiled. They think the speakers blew up by themselves. After having said goodbye, Jazz and Danny left for home. When Danny tried to give his sister a hand bringing in her bags, she refused, and then started fussing over him, like he was sick and about to die. It didn't help how much he tried to explain to her that he was fine. She kept treating him like her little brother. When Sam and Tucker finally arrived, Danny was relieved. "Hi, bro, looking good for a dead man," said Tucker, dumping his backpack on the floor just inside of the door. Smiling, Danny poked at the blue spot on his face. "I don't know, looks like you were the one who got hit the most." "Well, the yellow team won all the rounds, but not without sacrifice," said Tucker proudly, flopping down on the living room couch. "Heard you got into trouble again. What happened?" As Danny was telling Tucker what had happened, Sam arrived, talking on her phone. "We'll have our pizzas here in 10 minutes, she said, sitting down in the corner of the couch. "You got the movies, Tucker?" After that, they busied themselves putting on the first of the 3 Hobbit Extended Edition movies, and was making themselves comfortable in the couch, commenting on everything they didn't agree with when the doorbell rang and Danny got up. "He plays 2 roles in the movie, and they never show his face. Come on, that's just sad," he said, opening the door. "Ultra veggie pizza, a Hawaii special with pineapple and extra meat, and oh, hi Danny." Valerie stood in the doorway, dressed in the horrible red and white striped uniform of the local pizza place, a surprised look on her face. "You're right," she smiled. Yeah, it was just an allergic reaction." "You working delivering pizzas now? What happened to the Nasty Burger gig?" asked Danny, avoiding going into what had happened. "I still work there every other day after school. The pizza thing is new. I needed to help Dad to get the rent for the next month. You know, Christmas and all." Like always, Danny felt a stab of guilt when Valerie talked about her father's economic problems. "Are you going to take forever?" called Sam, coming over to the door. "Hi, Valerie." She smiled, taking the pizzas from Valerie's hands and giving her the normal tip. Valerie scowled at Sam. "I'm not a charity case," she said, trying to hand Sam the money back. Sam ignored the other girl, and Danny was the one who had to save Valerie's injured pride. "That's a normal tip," he said, pushing back her hand, and then had an idea. "You want to come in? We're watching The Hobbit." Blinking at Danny, Valerie put the money in her pocket. "No, I have more deliveries to make," she smiled. "But thanks. See you at school on Monday." She waved, walking over to the moped. Closing the door, Danny turned to the others, who were all staring at him. "What?" he asked, and got accused of trying to get together with Valerie again. His face got redder and redder the more that he tried to get them to stop. The girl he liked wasn't Valerie. They were good friends, even after the time they had dated, but there was no chance to get together. Finally, he got them to stop bothering him by changing the subject over and over whenever they tried to question him. End of chapter 15. Chapter 16. Watching the extended edition of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy meant that it took them most of the night to watch the first 2 movies. Danny fell asleep halfway through the second one. Sleeping in the next day, they started on the 3rd movie in the afternoon and got to the Return of the King before they all fell asleep on a couch, surrounded by snacks, empty soda bottles, and burger wrappings. Jazz, being the responsible adult that she was, cleaned up around the sleeping teenagers and put blankets over them. She stopped at her brother, pushing away his fringe from his face, placing the back of her hand against his forehead. He was warm, just like he had been before the accident with the ghost portal, but he wasn't hot like he should have been if he had a fever. The next day, the 3 friends finished the last movie and were discussing it as they cleaned up the living room and helped Jazz pack her car with boxes from her room. "What's in these boxes?" Tucker asked, huffing under the box he was carrying one-handedly. "Just some books and kitchen appliance Mom and Dad got me for my birthday," Jazz answered, helping Tucker put the box in the trunk. "If these are books, you need help getting them out of the car later," Danny said, straining under the weight of 2 boxes. Sam opened the top of one of the boxes, revealing no kitchen appliance or books, but some of the Fenton ghost hunting equipment. Sam whistled. "You planning on going ghost hunting at school?" she asked, letting Danny put down the heavy box. "A girl's gotta defend herself," answered Jazz innocently, keeping an eye on Danny, who sat down on the top stairs to the house. Trust me, the guys on campus stick to you like glue if they think they got a chance on you. Sam put her hands on her hips. And you can't just use that psychology of yours and get them off you? Tucker walked over to Danny and sat down beside him, rubbing his hurt arm. It gets a bit harder when they can't get a hint, and they are my peers, and using martial arts would just be embarrassing, said Jess, pushing the box of fentanyl gear into the corner of the trunk. Embarrassing for you or the ones getting the crap beaten out of them? Asked Danny, wiping his brow. Closing the trunk, Jess smiled. Embarrassing for them, of course. Don't tell me you forgot her mom's lessons. Danny shivered, remembering the humiliating times she had completely defeated him in martial arts practice. I remember. He got up from where he'd been sitting. You have a safe trip, he said, giving his sister a quick hug before anyone else on the street could see them. Say hi to Mom and Dad when I come home tonight, she said, letting go of him. See you two around, she said to Sam and Tucker as she got into her car. The three watched Jazz leave and then turned to each other. Well, I have schoolwork to take care of. Some of us made the mistake of playing Doom 2 instead of reading that boring book, said Sam, putting on her coat. You going to be all right alone? She asked. Yeah, Danny shrugged, handing Sam her bag. Well, I'm off as well. I need a shower and there is a galaxy that needs conquering in Doom, said Tucker, getting up and taking his backpack from where it stood beside the door. I can count on your help taking on the Andromeda guards, right? Sure, Danny yawned. The three said goodbye and Danny walked in again. The living room didn't show any sign of the movie marathon, meaning that his parents would give him an earful for messing up the house when they were gone, even if they messed it up more when they were home. He walked up the stairs and undressed before getting into the shower, turning it to icy cold, letting the cool water shower over him gratefully as he closed his eyes. The moment he had gotten his powers back, he'd used his frost powers to keep himself cool. Letting go of the powers, he felt the heat rise in his chest. It was a couple of minutes later that Danny lay down on top of his bed, wearing only a pair of boxers and a t-shirt. His wet hair had turned to ice the moment he used his frost powers again to cool himself down. Falling asleep, a shiver went up his spine, and opening his eyes, he saw his own breath in front of him. Getting up, Danny looked out the window and scowled, seeing a white-clad ghost flying after the Red Huntress. End of chapter 16. Thank you for listening.